From Square 2, this is What's Wrong with Revenue. I'm Mike Lieberman, CEO at Square 2, and along with my longtime friend and business partner, Eric Kalis, this show answers the question many CEOs, CMOs, CROs, and business owners are asking, what's wrong with revenue? New shows drop every Thursday morning. You can find the video version of the show on YouTube at the Square 2 Marketing channel, on our website at the What's Wrong with Revenue page located in the footer, or on our free streaming service Square 2 Plus, both located at square2marketing.com. You can subscribe to the show or subscribe to Square 2 Plus, and we'll email you new show content as soon as it's published. You can also submit questions to the show on the What's Wrong with Revenue page of our website. Eric and I answer questions every single episode. You can also find the podcast version of the show on all your favorite podcast platforms. Enjoy the show. Hi, everybody. Mike Lieberman. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 12. What's wrong with revenue? Today, we're going to talk about companies. What kind of leaders are right for an RGS system? So let me take care of the backstory first. Hey, if you're into YouTube, the show is on Square 2 Marketing's YouTube channel. Go check it out. You can like us, you can subscribe to it, and you can leave us comments. Every single What's Wrong with Revenue episode from Season 1 and Season 2 is posted on YouTube. You can also get the show on Square 2's free streaming service, Square 2 Plus, located at square2marketing.com/Square2PLUS. All of our audio and video content is hosted there. We have channels for CEOs, CROs, CMOs, CIOs, and a whole technology channel dedicated to everything HubSpot. Go check it out. You can catch it at the bottom of our website in the footer, Square 2 Plus, and you'll be right there. It looks just like Netflix. Enjoy it. And also, if you're into the show, we have a page dedicated to the show, What's Wrong with Revenue, also located in the footer of Square 2's website. Click on it. You can subscribe to the show. We'll put the show right in your inbox. We'll put the show right in your inbox every Thursday afternoon, and we'll even email you information about upcoming shows so you can check them out accordingly. And if you have any questions, you can submit them there. Every couple of shows, Eric and I handle questions. So if you have any, drop them in there, and we will take care of it. Eric, how you doing? What's going on?
Doing great. Friday.
What's the weather in Florida?
90 and sunny, not a cloud in the sky.
Heat wave down there, I saw.
It's getting a little toasty. I mean, it is April 1st, so, yeah.
It's all good. So like I said at the beginning of the show, today we're going to talk about what kinds of companies, and specifically we stretched a little bit into what kind of leaders might be right for a revenue generation system. So look, let's be honest, like not every company, not every person is going to be right for a system like this. We've been talking to a lot of people about a revenue generation system, and sometimes it's just not a fit. Some companies don't need it. They might be hitting their goals month over month. Others might not feel like it's something they can stick with, or not interested in learning something new. Some companies may not be ready to put the time and investment around the energy and the resources to really learn something new like this. But most importantly, it's really about a commitment to doing revenue differently and working hard with some new motions and some new plays and some new approaches to really figure out how to take a different approach to revenue. And what we're going to talk about today during the show is we're going to try to profile what kind of companies would be good candidates, what kind of leadership teams or even leaders in general would be good candidates for a system like this. And then some specifics we're going to cover is what the company might need to decide in turn this is going to be a good fit. How can companies self-analyze what they're doing or what they've done historically to see if this is a good fit? And we'll cover all that in today's show. So Eric, I know you have a perspective on this. Why don't you take us out while I grab my dog by the scruff of his neck and throw him out of the office?
You'd be nice to Baxter over there. Mike, it's very interesting because systems and processes are specific to certain companies and foreign to others. And I think that the companies that really embrace revenue generation systems are the ones that are already kind of like grooving on some kind of meeting rhythm, strategic planning structure, something along the lines that, they can fit this in. And I'll give you two examples. we have two clients I could think of that are RGS. One is passionate about EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. To them, it's second nature. We have our L10 or level 10 meetings every week by department, leadership meets, operations meets, sales and marketing meets, so forth and so on. They're already in the mindset that we pick away at all of our issues every week. We look at our data. If there's something that is a red flag, we drop it down into a place to discuss it. They're already kind of thinking that way. And then you have the other kind of client that is also successful, but they're more of a organic, wing it, like we do it as it unfolds. There's nothing wrong with that kind of company, but that might not be good to go cold turkey on. We stop every Tuesday at 10 o'clock in the morning, and for 90 minutes we meet and we talk about this subject, and we commit to doing it every single week. It's just not the culture of some of the companies. I think in the latter, RGS isn't just going to be, it's just not going to be good, because it's going to be hard for them to change their behavior of every day brings a new adventure and we put out fires for the better part of the day, as opposed to like working on the business, not in it. But in the first scenario, if you're on any kind of a strategic planning platform, whether it's something you created yourself or something popular like Scaling Up, Strategic Coach, or EOS, it's second nature. Oh, I see what you're doing here. You're gathering a group of people to work on projects every single week. So I think it's a matter of, are you the first kind of company or are you the second kind of company? Now, just to put a little asterisk, in our experience with both EOS and RGS, the second company, the more freestyling company, can change. They can adopt that kind of thinking, and it helps them take it really up to the next level. But they have to be of the mindset that we're stuck in some way and we need a better way to do something, and they're willing to try something new. So for those that are open-minded but still freestyling, it works because they can implement it. And for companies that are already kind of rigid in their communication and meeting structure, it's a no-brainer.
Right. I think your first illustration is kind of obvious, right? They're already into systems, right? They're already into rhythms. They're already kind of focused on, the vocabulary and some of the same, motions that we're talking about with RGS. I want to spend a little more time talking about the second illustration, because I think that's more common, number one, even though EOS is exploding and there's a lot of EOS companies out there, and kind of this concept of a operating system for business is definitely getting a lot of traction. There's more people than ever before, like considering or using systems like that. But I still think there's a lot more companies that look like your second example. So besides being open to it, because that's a little fluffy, and a lot of people could be like, sure, I'm open to it. But like, I want to dig into that second persona in a little more detail. Like what could we be looking for inside that business that might make it a better fit, right? Besides, so they don't have any like practices like you're talking about. And, maybe they say they're open, but how do we go like next level and look under the covers a little bit into that business to see if we think this is going to be successful or not?
Yep. So the absolute first indicator is leadership frustrated with the progress they're making to get to their goal? Now, if you don't have a goal, then that's obviously a huge red flag, because, how do we know where we're going if we don't have any destination plan, right? So that's number one. But if you say we're a $5 million company and we really want to be a $10 million company, and then the next year we're 5.1, and then the year after we're 4.9, and the year after that we're 5.0 again, there must be some frustration there, because we've set our target at 10 million. So frustrating for not achieving the goals and objectives we set forward is by far the biggest trigger. When it becomes painful enough, to steal a square two, and marketing term, when it becomes painful enough, then leadership might start looking for other solutions. They realize what they're doing now is just not getting them there, and they have to be a little bit open, which leads to your comment, like we got open. How we got to be open usually stems from a lot of frustration and right, hanging your head against the wall.
Right.
Secondly, it's a people thing, right? So let's say you're the marketing person at an insurance company, right? and you come up on and you're marketing, and then you make friends with the salesperson, and the salesperson try to hit their quota, and the marketing person is like, well, look at my last job, this is how we got results, but nothing's happening. And the people have this desire internally to be brought together. Now, you know the program Tough Love, right? So you got the kids perhaps a bit misbehaving, and the parents give them a little tough love, and all of a sudden they realize, oh, okay, people are serious about helping me, and now I'm going to change my behavior. I think it's the same thing with marketing. When the sales, marketing, and customer service teams come to leadership and they're like, we need to do this a different way. We were hitting the numbers of my last job. Our competitors are growing and leapfrogging us. We want to do something. It could also come from within, that the people are driving that decision as well. But those are two of the probably most common indicators that when we talk to companies interested in going on RGS, that they share with us.
Yeah, do you think that those are real good? And I agree with you completely. I think, yes, the desire has to be there and leadership has to support it. And I do agree there has to be a certain fitness to their pain that is driving them to try something different than what they've done before. What about some more specifics? Like, is there a size issue or a number of people, marketing, sales? Like, what would some other maybe more quantitative or easy to identify indicators be for someone to be like, hey, that sounds like my company, and yeah, I am open and we've been struggling, but all these other things sound like us too. What would some of those other things be?
Yeah. So let's say you're an independent consultant, right? It's you and maybe an assistant. You're not ready for RGS, right? There's nobody to execute by yourself. So there is a size component of that. And I don't mean specifically revenue, but you need a couple of people to like kind of get together. The essence of RGS is the weekly revenue team working together. So you got to need a team is obviously a big criteria. So what could a team be? Well, you could still be a small company and have one internal marketing person, have a part-time salesperson to help the owner who's doing selling, an outside contractor for the website, and a marketing agency with a very modest retainer who's doing some of the kind of like campaigns and perhaps content development or something like that. That fits. And if leadership says, hey, we understand the value of driving forward our revenue generation efforts, you can make a team out of those people. So it doesn't have to be the traditional 5 people in marketing and 5 people in sales and 5 people in customer service or more. It could simply be a cobbled together group of people that have a common goal, which is to help grow the revenue of the company.
And it's also a pretty small company you're describing. So it seems like it could fit even for a startup company or a company that's been relatively small, and they want to be small, but they're just still looking to do things differently and grow revenue from its current point to at some point higher.
Absolutely. And it's also a budget conversation, right? You don't need to hire an RGS coach in order to help you. You could self-implement. In fact, there's all the tools on the Square 2 Marketing website for RGS self-implementation. It's just a matter of, do you want to do the work all by yourself? Do you want to kind of like spend the time to learn about the concepts and methodology and implement? Over to EOS, the entrepreneurial operating system, far more people self-implement than they have EOS implementers as coaches. So it's just a matter of like, are you pissed off that you can't hit the number, and what are you going to do about it, and who are you going to pull in to help you? So I think that at the lowest level, you need a couple of folks that are going to come together and work on growing revenue as a team, whether they might be internal people, external resources like agency or contractors, or even like advisors or guides or something like that. The second thing about it is that I think that when it comes to the criteria, you have to have the right kind of marketplace. And what I mean by that is, and I don't mean this in any disrespect, if you're a dry cleaning store in a local town, there's probably a couple of things you can do to generate awareness from a few more people to get you to your revenue goal. I don't think you need a monster marketing plan and a few salespeople out on the streets and you have to revamp your website. There's some blocking and tackling, basic blocking and tackling that goes with having, let's say, a local retail shop. But anybody who's in B2B, anybody who's professional services, anybody who has a long sales cycle and a complex sale and perhaps a higher ticket average, call it a couple $1,000s per sale, those are the companies that are a really good fit for leaning into an RGS type system.
Yeah. Also, we spent a good amount of time in previous shows talking about the 6 components of RGS. And I think there has to be some kind of understanding around those also for this to be a good fit. So You know, do you agree with that?
100%. I mean,
Okay.
a lot of times companies that are beginning their journey on revenue generation are all in on one-to-one selling.
Right. Well,
They're
you
not
also talk.
considering, I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say you also talked a lot about like this concept of, and this is common in companies, like this fire drill mentality, right? Like every week we get together. Okay, what do we got to do this week to get through the week? Hey, you do this, you do that, you do that. Okay, break, and hopefully all that got covered by the end of the week, and then we'll start again on Monday doing the same thing. Like there are a lot of companies that operate like that, and I'm not judging them. It's just a fact. That's not what we're talking about here. So I wanna I want to spend just a little bit of time going through the 6 pieces with the fit overlay. Like, so like process is the first one, right? Like, how do I have to feel if this is a fit for me around process for it to be a good fit? Like that, let's go through those 6 things and see if we can help
Yeah.
people match up in that way.
Yep. So I think that in the first one, process, it's a dedication to carving out the time necessary. I could tell you a variety of RGS clients that were like, oh, sorry, we got to postpone our meeting. We have a big pitch coming up. No, that's not the way it works. You can't step on the RGS meeting. It has to be every single week. It might be that some people don't attend. And I'll be honest with you, it even goes one step further. Like, look, we run EOS and RGS at our company. And I can tell you almost down to a person of on the Square 2 team, everybody looks forward to their weekly revenue team meeting because that's the meeting where they have stored up some things they want to discuss. They love interacting with their team. They love the creativity around brainstorming to clear obstacles and break open problems. So I think you not only have to be like tolerant, but you have to be looking forward to that meeting because that's an exciting meeting where the whole team gets involved to help achieve the goals that we've all decided together. So like when you start with process, 1, you have to welcome it. 2, you can't fight it. And 3, maybe even look forward to it a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest one for me is look, Square 2 is a very process oriented company. So it wasn't a big shift for us to have another or have a different process for some of these things. But not all companies are process oriented. I think if you are process oriented, if processes make you feel better, if systems make you feel better, if methodologies and frameworks make you feel better about what's going on in your company, and look, I think it should, but that would be another indicator for me that RGS might be right for you. If those things make you feel comfortable, this is going to really make you feel really good about a very challenging area of your business. If you're kind of like, like process schmocess, like I would say you're not going to be a good fit because there are a lot of processes that we're introducing with RGS besides even just the execution of the program itself, but tracking things on a regular basis, identifying things that are broken and applying process to it, and rallying a bunch of people to work on something together so it can get done quickly. Like, those are all part of the outcomes of people who run RGS. You have to be open and welcoming to those kinds of activities in your business in order for this to be a success, in my opinion.
Oh, well spoken.
Okay. What about strategy? How about that?
Strategy. Just get right to the tactics. I mean, come on, how many times have we heard that? You have to understand that you cannot bake a cake unless you have a good recipe. The time that it takes to create that recipe is critical because you can make cake after cake after cake using that same strategy. It's the same thing here. If their company doesn't value strategy and they just lean into day-to-day tactical activities, they're never really going to achieve the results they're looking for. And the reason I say that is because there's a big divide between strategy and planning, right? Strategy is you're coming up with a set of assumptions that if we do things a little different than the competition, more people will want to buy from us and we will flourish. Tactics are we're going to do more ebooks and we're going to add more pages to our website and blast out more emails and we're going to make cold calls. There's nothing wrong with those tactics if they cascade down from an overall strategy, but as standalone things, they're just not going to be effective. So companies that don't value the time it takes to develop that strategy, try new things, could perhaps be a little bit more aggressive in their storytelling and try things that instead of, the industry standard 1-week delivery, we promise we could do it in 2 days. Oh, how are we going to do that? Well, working with operations to get that done, or even doing that at a premium price, so that you could go to market faster. Those are the things that are strategic. And if you're not willing to have that conversation and do the hard work necessary to tweak your standard operating procedure in order to just be a little bit differentiated, what's the point?
Yeah, I think this might be the biggest one for me. Like, if you don't have a strategic perspective on what you're doing from a revenue perspective, it's probably not going to be a good fit, right? And in fact, we had an RGS client recently who I don't think had really that strategic perspective to what they were trying to accomplish. And we kind of agreed with them that they weren't a great fit, right? So I think it's really important. I was even writing a blog article for next week about like lead management practices. And like if you're not thinking about your sales process from a strategic perspective, like how do I create a sales process that is so unique in our space that people are going to like feel better about working with us versus our competition before they even start working with us? Like if you don't have that mindset, I don't think RGS is going to be right for you either. You need to be thinking about all the different elements that go into revenue generation. And there are so many with that strategy before tactics approach, if this is going to work for you.
Yeah, I mean, I was in a speaking gig 2 days ago, and the company Warby Parker came up. And once again, I just think it's a great example of a couple people that said the current experience to buy eyeglasses stinks. You go to the optician, they send you into that weird back room with the dusty frames, and they're like, oh, you could pick from this specific row. And it's like a weird experience. And Warby Parker said, let's break this open and make it fun. That set of assumptions that they created strategically, and then let that cascade down into the operations of their retail stores, their website, and so forth, enable them to quickly be the market leader and completely disrupt the market. And I got to tell you, the revenue followed, and I don't know about the profit, but I'm assuming that the profit is there as well.
Yeah, and I'm sure that move to create that experience didn't take a couple days. I mean, I'm sure they worked on that for a pretty long time to understand the shipping and the returns and the ordering and the packaging, and to make that really an elegant experience for their customers and prospects. And that required everyone to understand the strategy, what they were going for, and participate in each of their little areas to make sure that that could execute, beautifully. And like clearly everyone knows about it because, we're constantly talking about it.
Well, I just
What's
think
next?
it's a great
Tactics?
example of like having a set of assumptions. Like nobody likes to buy eyeglasses the way it is now. And remember, it's an ongoing strategic conversation. If you remember when they opened the first Warby Parker stores, you couldn't get the eye exam. There was no doctors. Now there's a doctor on site at every store. So they even added that differentiator, knocking out your local, not optician, what's the other one? Ophthalmologists are now under there. So they're competing in another pond now against ophthalmologists.
Yeah. And we can move on from this, but it's such a good example. Like, I think you and I were talking, or I was talking this with somebody. Oh, it might've been Bob, our creative director. Like, they're going to have to step it up again, because I don't know if you've noticed, but almost every single one of their competitors has this virtual try-on experience on the web with your camera. It's pretty darn good. I mean, I bought a pair of Oakleys a couple weeks ago that I tried on virtually, and I knew exactly how I was going to look in them. Like it kind of disintermediated the whole Warby Parker shipping me the glasses kind of thing. So now this is a great example of how you have to continue to focus on strategy and continue to be aware of what's going on in your space and continue to elevate the bar, because, they might have gotten like jumped a little bit. Now, I haven't been a Warby Parker, so maybe they do something similar now, but what was remarkable a couple of years ago is definitely less remarkable today.
Yeah. And not to belabor it, but that's ongoing strategic conversation in the second slice of the RGS pie.
Absolutely. All right. What about the third one?
Tactics. Gotta have them.
Tactics.
Everybody jumps to the tactics. So everybody wants to go to the party. Nobody wants to clean up, right? Everybody wants the tactics because people appreciate the value in the stuff, the website, the content, nurture campaigns, blogging, all of that is the stuff. Here's the deal, though. None of that is effective unless the strategic message that's created from the pie slice before cascades down into it. So, 3 gold stars for a company that creates content every single week, but they're not going to be able to compete with their competitor who's creating content if it's not strategic, right? If they're just creating content for the sake of content. And you remember that story I told you about an optician, audiologist friend of mine. She signed up for a $50 a month, bland content just to populate the website and send out stuff on social. And I said, yeah, but your content has nothing to do with what you do. It's just basic content about hearing and hearing aids. She goes, yeah, but it's better than nothing, which I actually disagree with, because all that money and effort is either degrading the relationship they're having with their followers, listeners, community or whatever, or it's actually turning them off. Because this audiologist specializes in helping older folks with hearing aids. And they were talking about hearing loss at sporting events, hearing loss at rock concerts, which is not applicable, but it's hearing. So it checked the box for content. So I think your tactics have to be strategic as well. Now, the creation of content is also a part of, is your company a good RGS fit or not? If you don't have the internal resources or the budget to outsource that content, well, then you can't execute on your RGS program. So you have to know. Now, I have RGS clients. They love creating the content themselves. They send it over to me as their RGS coach, and I give it a quick edit, make sure that it's like on point. That's perfectly fine. But they're at least leaning into the fact that they realize they have to create content that cascades down from their big story. And whether they're doing it themselves to save money or sending it to a part-time copywriter, it doesn't matter. They're moving along and creating this RGS system that it's going to help them grow their company years into the future.
Yeah, and just to keep us kind of focused here, like when it comes to tactics and fit, the companies that are going to thrive in this system are the ones that are prepared to execute the right amount of tactics. You know, like you have a goal, you have a strategy, you're leaning into this system. You got to be able to put the energy and the money behind the tactics required to move the needle, right? If you're coming to us and you're like, look, we haven't grown for the past couple of years, we don't know what to do about it. And upon further review, we find out that you really haven't really invested much in marketing anyway. Like, well, you shouldn't be surprised that growth has been limited. So, when you get to the tactics piece, you can't shortcut it. You have to run the tactics required based on your strategy. And again, from a fit perspective, you got to be prepared to invest both time and money into those tactics for the whole thing to work. Again, these are 6 components that have to work together. They're pieces of a pie. If even one of them is missing, the revenue generation system is not going to spin and produce the results you're expecting.
100%.
Next comes campaigns. What are we looking for from a fit perspective around that?
Yeah, before we jump to campaigns, one quick note. Just because you're spending money on tactics also don't mean the right tactics, right? Companies that are spending $250,000 a year on a trade show or conference campaign, not tracking it, understanding what they're getting from it, not using their remarkable differentiation messaging or whatever, that's also a problem with RGS, because a lot of that is the analytics that come with what's working and what's not, and you have to be open to making pivots. We had a client, they were doing 6 trade shows a year. We tracked it. They're not getting anything from it because people just don't value trade shows like they used to. But yet they were really, really stuck on going to those shows and not rotating the hundreds of thousands of dollars they were spending into channels that their strategic personas were using. So you have to be a little open-minded about your migration of your spending as well, depending on data.
Yeah. Campaigns, I mean, from a campaign perspective, look, most of the people that we talk to about these systems, they're not really running campaigns the way they should be running them anyway. They're more running a series of tactics that are a little disconnected and not quite, 1 + 1 = 3. So, I would suggest from a fit perspective in the area of campaigns, you got to be open to maybe looking at how you deploy your tactics differently. You might have to be looking to supplement some of your current tactics with some additional tactics. There may be some other segmentation exercises that, you got to be into putting in place for yourself so that your campaigns can get more personalized, get more one-to-one, get more omni-channel. So I think this is probably one of the easier ones from a fit perspective. If you're open to execution upgrades and doing things a little bit differently, then the fit around campaigns is probably going to be there in most cases.
I would agree.
And then technology. I mean, we didn't talk about technology much from a fit perspective, but I think it's pretty big. Um, Primarily because of everything that you have to do. You have to really lean into your own data. You need technology to manage your data. You have to really lean into automation. There's so many things to do. It's really hard to do it if you're not automating those things that can be automated. Technology is going to help you automate those things. For personalization, we talked about in campaigns, literally impossible to do without technology. You want to sync up. You know, we've been talking about this revenue team concept for the entire time we've been doing the show. You want to sync up marketing, sales, and services activities. If you don't have a single platform that they're all on, that becomes very difficult to do also. So I think you got to have some technology in place, or at least the desire to install the right technology to do this the way we're recommending you do it. If you're still dead set on, you know, Outlook emails and a spreadsheet, you're not going to be a good fit for RGS. There's just going to be too many things we're asking of the team to do it without some kind of technology and some kind of technology platform. So I think you got to be either in it now or certainly open to it.
I mean, it's the revenue generation system. You have to do what's necessary to generate revenue. And the reason that a lot of companies plateau is because they base it upon a manual approach. Well, there's nothing wrong with the owner of a company being the rainmaker, nothing whatsoever. But inherent in that is going to be a glass ceiling. The reason being is you can only network so much. You got to sleep, you got to eat, you got to, be human. When you use software like technology, like HubSpot, well, now you can scale, right? So now things are automated. Things can be one-to-many as opposed to one-to-one. And I also don't want to forget the part that you need something to manage your weekly revenue team meetings. So you need a little piece of software like EOS1 or 90.io. That's another part of the technology. Several RGS prospective clients were like, well, why do I need another piece of software? Well, because this is the right tool for the right job. This is the software that manages your weekly revenue team meeting. And honestly, like 90.io, one of my favorite ones, it's like $12 per person. It's not that expensive. But it's another tool that'll really help you scale and automate.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I had a comment that I'll probably get back to in a second. So, and the last one.
It's all, let's just be honest, it's 2023. Like if you're not sprinkling technology into your revenue generation efforts, immediately you're behind.
Right. Well, that's actually triggered. You know, like we talk a lot about how there are systems for other areas of the business, right? You have a financial management system that includes financial management software. Like no company that is doing well is managing their money in a lockbox, right? They all have some kind of financial management software that helps them pay their bills and see where they are financially, financial metrics, you know, all the reporting that needs to get done financially, like it's all done in an automated toolkit.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Mike, but I have to go check on our manufacturing facility. Let me get my abacus out so I can count the amount of things I'm shipping. Like it doesn't work. You're right. Who doesn't have software to manage the systems these days?
Right. So this is a very parallel conversation. You need the right set of tools. You need the right technology stack for your revenue generation system. And it does include tools for marketing, tools for sales, tools for customer service, and tools to manage your overall RGS system. That has to go together. In terms of fit, you got to be open to that, or this is not going to be a good match.
Also, like, I mean, I've talked to companies that balk on $1,000 a month to invest in HubSpot, right? And if you think about it, for $12,000 a year, it's more powerful than a manual salesperson or marketing person. It has all these tools. It can do all these things. I think a lot of companies are really short-sighted or penny-wise, dollar foolish when it comes to investing in technology. Just like they wouldn't say, oh, we'll get a manual printing press in the back like Ben Franklin used. No, they're going to be like, give me the state of the art with all the technology. I have to be as efficient as I possibly can.
Right. And the last one is resources. So what am I looking for inside my company to see if this is a fit from a resources perspective?
Well, using some EOS vernacular, one of the things you do in EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, right out of the gate is you develop your accountability chart. Who's responsible and accountable for these parts of the business? And let's put their name in each box and see what the company looks like. Well, the first thing is you need someone whose name is in the box other than the owner, unless the owner's passion is sales and marketing, other than the owner of the company to be the rainmaker. And the rainmaker is the person who's directly responsible and accountable for hitting the revenue targets. So that's number one. If you don't have anybody in your company that name can go in that box, even if you're the owner, you're kind of screwed. Nobody's watching out for growing the company. Once you have that, the second thing is, well, we need three different areas. We need sales, we need marketing, and we need customer service, right? So that ongoing delivery, we're trying to upsell and cross-sell people lots of stuff. Well, you can have an outsourced part-time salespeople. You could have an intern from the local college doing your marketing, and you can have your significant other who deals with the clients when you close them. Great. There's a three-person revenue team right there. It does not have to be that way, but you have to understand that for 90 minutes a week, using the methodology that we're talking about, you got to get that group together, and they have to be dedicated to breaking open obstacles that are in the way of generating revenue and hitting the number. If you can think that way of like corralling all of your resources together, then you're okay, right? But if you're like, nah, we don't need a marketing person. Nah, we don't need to sell more to our clients. Then, what are we talking about here? Because you're not being serious about growing your companies with all the opportunities that are presented to yourselves, to your company. And I think that's a sin. Now, back to our local dry cleaner. If the local dry cleaner wants a lifestyle business, they don't need a marketing person. They don't need a salesperson. And they themselves can be the customer service person telling them that they do shoe repair and fixing leather goods while the person is at the counter. You don't need customer service people either. But that person's goal and objective is not having 50 dry cleaning stores. It's having a pleasant time and making enough money to give my family everything they need. So once again, it's a mindset issue about how you're approaching resources and what those resources can actually do for you.
Yeah, one of the things I really like about RGS is how all of these 6 things are connected and how they kind of inform each other. So if you have a process and you have a strategy and you have tactics and campaigns and technology, you need the right amount of resources to support those other 5 pillars. And we see this frequently too, like companies don't have enough resources to do what they need to do. So if you took the time to put a process in place and built out a strategy and you designed your campaigns and tactics and technology to do everything you need, it would be just a shame to leave it in the hands of an under-resourced team that can't quite get it together in the way it was designed to get together and the results it was designed to produce. So I think companies who are, wondering whether this is right for them or not and questioning if this is a fit, you got to be committed to putting the right resources behind the rest of your 5 pillars to make this whole thing work, right? The whole point of this is it's a system. If even one piece of the system is either under resourced, underfunded, attended to, your system is not going to work the way it was originally designed. So this is going to clearly map out for you what resources you need to complete the rest of the puzzle. And then you got to be comfortable and committed enough to put those resources in place and then let that system really run and optimize.
Agreed.
Cool. All right. So a couple things before we wrap up. I want to ask, so some people might be watching this or listening to this and feel like, wow, this seems like a really cool idea, but I don't fit the profile. Is there anything they can do to get their business in better shape or put it in a better position to take advantage of this or potentially grow into using this? Like, what would you say to somebody like that?
Yeah, I say to most people that are, remember we talked about the 2 kinds of company, the company that already has rhythms and some kind of planning and meeting system and the company that doesn't. For the company that doesn't, and if they really are serious about changing their behavior so they can start to really accelerate their growth patterns, they should start by doing a little bit of education. And by education, I mean reading a couple of resources. The first one is the book Traction. It's not specifically about revenue generation, but it's the core of the methodology that RGS is built upon. And if you read Traction, it talks a lot about how you could take your company from a non-performing company to a performing company. So that would be a first thing. The second thing I would do is I would dive into some of the 6 pieces of the pie that we offer that describe the components of the RGS system. the way that you can identify which of those 6 pieces of the pie you need help with is by the 6-minute health survey. It's a little survey at square2marketing.com that in 6 minutes you can actually self-grade yourself and identify, oh, look, these are the areas I'm okay in, but these are the areas I need help in. And then if you start an RGS program, you already know which are the issues that you should lean into first because you already identified those. So for example, one of the questions is, everybody in my company tells the same differentiated story. If that's not true, you need a little help with strategy. We have technology that manages our sales and marketing efforts. If you don't, I might want to look into some HubSpot. And as you do these little additions to your company and make these small changes, all of a sudden you're starting to lay in a stronger foundation that when you add a revenue generation system, at least you're ready to go and you're not starting from scratch. So a little bit of pre-work, a little bit of education. That's where I would start my journey to growing my company.
Yeah, it's a great point. I was going to try to wrap up with the idea that there are tools that you can self-analyze your business and your past performance and your behaviors to see if this is a good fit for you, or to see how you're currently doing in comparison to other businesses. So the 6-minute health survey is a really great asset. You can get it on the Square 2 Marketing website. You can either email Eric or me too, and we'll basically hand deliver it to you in your in-bin. Eric in-bin. What am I from 1970? Inbox. Right to your inbox, Eric at square2marketing.com or Mike at square2marketing.com, and we'll send you a link to the 6-minute health survey. It's a really awesome tool, and the output
what's
is
interesting about the 6-minute survey. So for those companies that have a couple people, if you give it to everybody, that's fascinating to see the differences in results.
Right. And you'll get compared to other businesses. So you can see how you're doing. And it even gives you a couple of recommendations on things you can start working on immediately to make some improvements. So great way to wrap up the show. Eric, thanks so much. Really appreciate it. Just to remind everybody, you can get the show on YouTube, Square 2 Marketing channel. All What's Wrong with Revenue shows from season 1 and season 2 are posted there. Like us, subscribe, and leave us comments. We really appreciate it. You can also get the show at Square 2 Marketing website at our new free streaming service, Square 2 Plus, square2marketing.com/Square2PLUS. We have all audio and video content there in a Netflix style webpage. You can subscribe to Square 2 Plus and get notified when we put new things up there. And we do pretty much every week post new audio and video content there. There are channels for CEOs, CIOs, COOs, CROs, CMOs, and even for people who love HubSpot. We have a technology channel, as well as channels for our current podcast, this one, and our previous podcast, Smash the Funnel. Go check it out. I think there's something there for everybody. And if you love this show, What's Wrong with Revenue, we have a dedicated page on our website at the footer, What's Wrong with Revenue. Click on it. You can subscribe to the show directly. We will email you the show right to your inbox on Thursday mornings. And we'll even give you some emails letting you know what some of the upcoming shows are going to include. And you can even ask Eric and me questions. I promise next show, we will answer some questions that have been submitted by our audience. Eric, thanks so much. Have a really good weekend. And guys, thanks for joining.
See you.